Hi, so hello, Vassos.
Hi.
Hi, excellent. Thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone for signing in and watching. I'm going to have a little bit of an introduction to who Vassos is, and then we've got lots of questions prepared. But like Matt said, any questions from you? Vassos has said he's very happy to answer anything, so we'll see where that goes. So Vassos Alexander is an endurance runner. He's an author and a sports reporter on the Chris Evans breakfast show on Virgin. He's got a sub 3 hour marathon. He's completed some of the toughest races around, including the Spartathlon, which is 153 miles with quite tight cutoffs. He's written 3 books. Here, and we've got to give away later in the event, and we've got an hour or so to ask lots of questions and talk to him. So thank you very much, Vassos, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but I think I said when we had a chat earlier that we've just listened to all 3 of your books on Audible, so it's like we've been talking for hours now. So, so yeah, we thought we'd quite like to start with our guests with kind of right at the beginning. So just a little bit of an introduction to maybe childhood, whether you were a sporty kid, and then how you got into running, or back into running, as you currently do it, if that would be all right.
Yes, of course. So no, I wasn't particularly sporty kid. Although curiously, looking back at primary school, there was a sort of loop around the block. I guess it was about 2 miles max, which everyone moaned about, and I sort of joined in the moaning, but I didn't really hate it at all. And then the loop of the playing fields as well was the other run that they used to send us on, and that would have been 1 mile. And I didn't hate it, but I joined in the general sort of moaning about having to go for a run. And then I never really thought about it until I sort of hit my 30s, and that's sort of that general thing where you hit 30 and you can sort of, keep eating what you like, but you stop not being fat. And so I started running basically for just for vanity. I remember I saw a little roll of fat over my jeans one day on my way to work. I was presenting the evening show on Radio 5 Live, it was then. And I thought, well, let's do something about that. And I started exercising, and I hated it. But then I started running outside, and then I thought, oh yes, this is the thing. And I know that books have been written. I've written 3 of them on what running does and all the boxes it ticks. And for some people, it's just a it's a physical thing. For some people, it's a mental thing. For some people, it's escape, or it's But for me, it's all of those things. And I just loved it. I never thought when I started running that I'd enter so much as a park run. I just quite enjoyed the feeling of running, even though obviously it's hard, especially when you start. But then I just was open to seeing where the journey took me. And I've been really, really lucky that I've entered some wonderful races and met some really outstanding people across the way, and sort of been welcomed into the running community. And I will be forever grateful to that first pair of trainers that I borrowed of a guy called John, and I haven't given them back. But they were the start of the journey. One run to basically just to the end of my street. That was the start of it when I was in my, I don't know, early to mid 30s, and I've just carried on from there.
Brilliant, thank you.
So what's like now? You've done lots. What's sort of a typical day in your life now? Like, where do you fit your running in? You're very busy, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, what I do is I don't wear underwear. I just wear running shorts. So my running shorts are my underwear. I once told this to the audience at the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and I can't remember who was interviewing me. They said, no, that's not the case. Surely not. And so I said, fine, you ask. and I took my trousers off on the stage at the Literature Festival. And I think I was on just after David Attenborough. So I think some of that crowd had sort of stayed in, and they were a little bit shocked. And I did have that moment when I was just literally just taking my trousers off, when I thought, what if for once I've forgotten to put on, or but no, frankly, I literally don't even own any boxer shorts anymore. I just wear running shorts, which means, and then my socks are all running socks, and generally I'm wearing trainers. So basically, if I take my jeans off, I'm good to go. I'm good to go on a run. And that makes such a difference. You know, otherwise you have to go upstairs, change, basically get naked, find new clothes, put them on. Then, whereas actually, you know, go for a run, even if I've got half an hour before the next thing, go for a run, bit of deodorant, no one really minds. I turned up at my son's school last week. He was in trouble again. And I had a meeting with the head teacher, and I turned up. You know, when you run and you run a bit harder than you meant, and you keep sweating for much longer than you thought you would. And I gave myself a good 10 minutes to stop sweating, but I hadn't even started. You know, I was literally dripping. This poor me. So, but my son was there, the head teacher was there. No one quite knew where to look. But you know, you just fit in a run. And I always run my commute, or I generally run my commute, which is 9 miles. And if I do that there and back, that's 18 miles, and that's free. You know.
Yeah. That's a top tip, because I mean, it's one of the things that people say, isn't it? It's that there isn't time, but you can always make time. It's you can always. I mean, people say, "Oh, I haven't got time to train for a marathon." How do you have time to train for these, you know, silly long races? I'm training for the Arctic Attrition currently, which I absolutely don't have time for, but you can absolutely make time for it. You just, you know, and if all else fails, I just run overnight. I just go a night without sleep, and I just run through the night, and then that's your long run.
Yeah. When's the Arctic Attrition? I can't remember when it is.
It's end of January.
Okay.
Excellent.
And that's 100-ish miles on the coast path, is it?
Yeah, I think it's 100 miles. It's around the southwest coast path around Lizard Point in Cornwall. It starts at the bottom, go round, end at the top. And it is, by all accounts, blimmin' difficult, and I cannot wait. I live in London, so there is no sort of hills like that, but there's Richmond Park and there's Wimbledon Common, and it's got hills, and basically I'm just doing that up, down, up, down, up, down. They're short, sharp hills, which actually, you know, when you live in London and you're training for the Dragon's Back race, that's a problem, because you haven't got long kind of mountains. But if you're just training for the, you know, for the coastal path, actually it's not too bad. You just up and down the same hills.
Yeah, steps.
Yeah, we've done the first half of it and the steps.
I think
get up and down the stairs.
It's probably the first race we did together.
Yeah.
We did the Endurance Life Classic Quarter, which is Lizard to Land's End. It's the first 44 miles of it.
Yeah.
How was it?
It's beautiful.
It's in the middle of summer though. So
it's hot. It was hot. I got really sunburnt on my left.
I'm not worried about sunburn, to be honest.
No, I wouldn't. But yeah, it was hard. I think it was about 10 hours we took, and it was like, but do you find, I always find, like, if you're doing I mean, I haven't done a 100-miler, but when I was doing that, which is 44 miles, you get to the marathon point, and the marathon felt quite easy. And I sort of find that often happens. So when you're doing the Arctic Attrition, the first 44 miles, like, it won't feel easy, but do you find it feels a lot easier than if you were just doing 44 miles?
Yeah. Well, I remember this one time I was running back from work. I was still working at Radio 2, and so my commute was a bit shorter. It was about 6.5 miles. And I was less than a mile in. My legs felt like lead weights. And I was running down George Street in central London towards Hyde Park. And I was thinking, I've got a 50-mile race on Saturday, and this was Monday, Tuesday. And how can I possibly run 50 miles this week when I'm struggling to run 5-6 miles today?
Yeah.
But then the day came around, and then obviously it wasn't, it wasn't easy. But the miles tick by, and you just keep going. And I don't offer myself the option of not finishing these things. I'll just keep going until basically I collapse or I finish. And then that's quite freeing, really, in a way. You just keep going. There's no other option on the table. The only other thing to do is just to keep going, and so you do. So even that 50-miler, where my legs weren't feeling it at all, like you say, like the first half, I can't even remember the first half. It was just, oh, it's the first half. And then all of a sudden I was coming down the hill to the finish.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to your training a bit, because having read the 3 books, so I'm sort of quite interested. And you seem like you've talked to a lot of people, a lot of sort of experts and things. But do you have a coach? Do you stick to training plans? Do you have training plans?
No, none of the above. None of the above. I'm very much more slapdash. I mean, I know you talked to Jasmine a couple of weeks ago here, and she's unbelievable. I'm in total awe of her and of many of the people I talk to in the books. And I'm very lucky that they made time to speak to me. All massively more impressive runners than I am. I'm just about okay, and I muddle along, but I quite like that about my running. I quite like the fact that I don't really worry too much about the logistics or the training. I just do what I can when I can. Sometimes that will bite me in the bottom. Like I forgot running shoes on my way to my first ultra, which was 60 odd miles, the Race to the Stones. I was on the coach and I realized I'd forgotten my blimmin' shoes, and I had to do it basically in suit shoes, in brogues. But I managed. The state of my feet afterwards was not pretty, but I quite like that sort of, you don't have to science the hell out of this stuff. You don't have to have a coach. I did for a month or two have an online running coach when I was desperate to break 3 hours for the marathon, and he just set me some sessions, like 3 or 4 sessions to hit a week, and I did those, but that was as close to anything as I came. Other than that, it's just what I can do when I can do it. I hear about sessions and I do them,
Yeah, I got that. I actually did your power hour on the treadmill yesterday.
Oh God, I'm so sorry about that. That's horrific.
It was the worst thing. Vassos's power hour, you'll have to correct me slightly, but it's basically 4 minutes of marathon pace or something like that, and then 1 minute faster.
So if let's say your marathon is 3 hours.
Yeah, so that's what I did. So I did 14.1 kilometers for 4 minutes, and then I went up to 16.5 kilometers for 1 minute. Is that about right? I didn't know whether I was going faster. It felt fast enough. I was broken, but or should I have gone
think
faster?
From memory, I can't remember because I haven't done it for a while. Because you get to about 2 in, and you think, well, I can't. There's no way I'm finishing this. And then 3, and then 4, and then it takes. It's a long hour, that, isn't it? Because you're recovering at marathon pace. And then for the next 3 or 4 days, did you feel your carbs were absolutely on fire?
Well, it's yesterday, and it's not too bad actually. The thing I found the worst, and I don't. Did you have any incline?
Yeah, 1.5.
Because I started off at 2, and then at halfway I was like, I'm not going to finish this, so I put the incline down but kept the same speed.
Yeah.
But I found, because I was thinking it was an hour, I got to an hour and I realized I'd warmed up for 10 minutes, so I had to carry on to an hour and 10, and I was like, oh, and that killed me.
I always found that my carbs really killed me after it. So maybe you weren't quite doing the fast bits fast enough.
Maybe
not trying hard enough.
Not trying hard enough.
But honestly, don't go again. Don't go again unless you're really training for something speedy. It was, and it's not my power hour as well. It's an amazing endurance coach called Rory Coleman. He's run over 1,000 marathons, and he put me onto it as a way to try and break 3 hours. And I've met him a few times since and corresponded, and we've interviewed each other on stage a couple of times at running festivals. So I absolutely can't take any credit, or whatever the opposite of credit, for the power hour is. It's all Rory's.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've started to get a couple of questions in, so I wanted to just talk about the books for a minute, because I think we're going to at the end pick whoever's asked the best few questions and maybe send them a book each. So okay. So Vassos's books are the first one. Let's look now.
Yep.
You see.
Yep. And then Running Up That Hill, and the most recent one, How to Run a Marathon. And Vassos's publishers have very kindly sent us some free copies, so those are to give away. I actually listened to them in reverse. So I started with how to run a marathon, and I've run loads of marathons, and I thought, I'm not going to learn anything from this. And actually, I found it really enjoyable. It's really good. It's like a book of two halves with lots of stories in the first half and lots of how-to stuff in the second half. And I'd kind of given up on my sub-3 marathon goal, and I just really found, having read that, all I wanted to do was get back on the sub-3 marathon thing. So then I went on to running up the hill, and then I really got back into the ultra mindset. I wanted to do my first 100, and yeah, so I was really fired up for that. And then went on to the first book, Don't Stop Me Now, and that takes you through the outlaw Ironman triathlon. And so now I just want to go back and do another Ironman triathlon. And actually, interestingly, so they're all really inspiring. And if you read one, you'll want to do what's in it. But interestingly, Sim did the outlaw Ironman triathlon the same day you did it. So it was quite interesting. I was there watching. It was so hot.
It was hot, wasn't it? It was the day Andy Murray won Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did it very badly. How did you get on?
I did very badly too. my worst marathon time by about 2 hours. Which is
me too.
Yeah. I think we looked up your time. I slightly beat you. You had a better swim. We had about the same run, and I had a better bike, but the bike made more difference, basically. But yeah, I was in bits. I was like sunburnt and dehydrated and walking and
yeah.
And
they ran out of water, didn't they? I mean, understandably, because it was bloody hot. But I remember that day with great fondness. It was my first proper endurance event of any sort of note, marathons aside, and they are different, aren't they? Things that take you all day to things that take you half a day, like a marathon. Whatever time you're going to do the marathon, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, it's half a day. Whereas an Ironman, it's 8 hours plus, so it's a full day. And I think things that take you a whole day do. The first time you do it, I think I woke up the next day a slightly different person to the one that I woke up the day of the outlaw, having really messed it up almost in every conceivable. No, I did a good swim. That's all I would give myself. My swim was fine.
Yeah, you did about 1 hour and 10, I think, something like that as a swim, which is it's good.
Yeah, it was there's a quite nice bit at the end where you do say it really changed you, and I wanted to kind of ask whether that's something that stuck with you from then onwards a bit, like if you still remember it.
I don't know whether, because people say, why do you keep chasing doing these longer and longer events? And, you talk about the books. And the first book, I was sort of done with the first book because it was a sort of celebration of everything that running is and does, and it included a little bit of longer stuff, but not really. And I sort of felt that there was my sort of love letter to running, if you like. And then they said, do you want to write another book? And I said, really not. But by that time, I kind of really got into running longer distances. And I said, well, Charlotte, my lovely editor, I said, look, can I write about ultra running? Expecting her to say, absolutely not. That's very niche for completely mad people. But she said, absolutely, yes. And so then, because of my job, I guess, I get, amazing access to these amazing people who answer my emails and pick up the phone to me, which I'm, still staggered and grateful for. And so I did that. And, during that, you do ask yourself, why are you putting yourself through some, pretty, I don't want to call them horrific experiences because they're not, they're difficult, these races, some of them, but we're all choosing to be there. This isn't a war. I'm not, escaping from, Nazis over the mountains of Crete or something. This is what I'm doing for fun. So I sort of don't lose sight of that. And then you wonder why you are doing these kind of silly long events. And I think it is because you're stripping away the layers of yourself, and then somewhere underneath all of that superficial pain is who you really are. And then you glimpse that, and then you think, well, I wouldn't mind glimpsing that again. And then you end up being, this is a bit of a long-winded and slightly self sort of obsessed answer, but I think you quite want to peel back those layers and find out who you are, and then you end up being that person a bit more. And I just think you end up, I think I'm a miles better person, miles I suppose being the operative word, for the running, for all this silly old running that I do.
Oh, brilliant. I've got a nice question from Alice Bryan, who said, I'd like to ask if Vassos has ever started a race that he hasn't finished, and if he learned anything from that experience.
Yeah, I have once. I have one DNF on my record, and it really annoys me.
I did want to ask you about this, actually.
Yeah, it's the Dragon's Back race of 2017, maybe 18. Can't remember. A couple of years ago, anyway. And what I learned is don't go into a 5-day mountain ultra in Wales, easily the toughest mountain race in the world, with a sprained ankle. It can't end well.
No, good tip. No. Any plans to go back there?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to go back whenever the last one pre-pandemic was, so 2019, and I dropped a toolbox on my foot about 2 weeks before, and I borrowed a X-ray machine from a vet I know, and I realised it was broken. That's illegal, by the way, so ignore that bit. So yes, it was broken, and I just thought I can't do it again. I can't go in. If it had been a marathon, fine. You know, if it had been a 1-day job, maybe fine, but not 5-6 days it is now, over every peak in Wales, and it's not running as most people understand running. I mean, it's a lot of it is scrambling. There's no tracks, there's no paths. It's fantastic. It's like it's 10 out of 10. It's 20 out of 10. Brilliant. But so I didn't do it. I didn't do it then. Couldn't do it last year. So you know, touch wood, I will get that. I need to scratch that itch. I need to scrub that DNF off my record. It still annoys me. Yeah. Can you tell?
Yes. do you get to sort of run on that sort of terrain very much? Because like you say, it's quite different to I imagine it would be hard. I mean, we live in Wiltshire. We live sort of just south of Bath, and you can get across to the Brecon Beacons, but locally I can't. It's hard to train. You can train for the distance, but not the terrain.
Yeah. I did a 50 mile in EU, the Mendip Way. That's sort of your neck of the woods. Frome starts in Frome, doesn't it?
Yeah,
we're fairly close. Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite nice. But it all paths basically.
Yeah.
Not really. I try and drag the family up to the Lake District as much as I can, and then you know, just lose myself up there. I did a couple of legs of a bob a few months ago backwards. I did 2, then 1, and that was quite brutal because I just wasn't used to it, and I hadn't really run those sort of distances. But it was lovely to be there. Yeah. And I sometimes find myself so in the Brecons, like you say, they're the closest lumpy bits to me. And a few months, like early summer, I think we were in Snowdonia, and I love doing reps up. I go up Llanberis, down Watkin, up Watkin, down Llanberis, which is a lovely day out, but it's not that sort of entry level Snowdonia. That's not the Rinogs. That's not the really trackless, wild, remote stuff. That's just paths, but it's a nice gradient. Yeah, I did it actually in Tenerife a few late October. I ended up running up quite a lot of mountains there, and they're lovely. They are, and I've still got half of a cactus in my right leg to prove it. But it was yeah, that was good.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah. Another question.
Yeah. So let's change the tack a little bit. From Caroline, what would be your favourite running gift under the Christmas tree?
Is that my wife, Caroline, who's just in the next room? Because maybe that's literally her asking me what I'd like for Christmas. If that is my wife, Caroline, hi, darling. I'm sorry we're not watching Succession as usual on a Monday night.
Sorry, Caroline.
Yeah, but what I would very much like is I don't know. I don't think you can go wrong with running socks. I love a good pair of running socks.
Which running
Brigdale trail socks are just mid-length.
The merino ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They are mega.
I'm not wearing them at the moment, but I'm normally wearing them.
Yeah.
Good one.
Another nice question from Helena. I started running 2 years ago doing the Couch to 5K. My goal was to do the Great North Run this year, which I managed in 2 hours and 5 minutes. Well done.
Well done.
I've now entered my first marathon for April, Brighton. Do you have any top tips and advice? I haven't got your book yet. Get his book. It's good.
Yeah, no, just enjoy it. Really, just remember to enjoy it, and remember that you've chosen to do this. This isn't something that you've got to do, and embrace the training. You know, you do have to put in a few long runs when you're training for a marathon, ideally 20 miles plus, but don't resent it all. You know, you're training in the worst of the weather. By the time Brighton comes around, it'll actually be quite nice, hopefully, on the day in Brighton. And you know, it's a lovely marathon, Brighton, really well supported. So just enjoy the journey. You know, the marathon is the sort of celebration at the end of all the training, but the training is what it's all about. Just getting yourself to the sort of stage, and then, you know, the marathon will come along. The marathon will be hard. You wouldn't want to do it if it wasn't. Don't give yourself the option to stop. If you really need to walk, then walk. But, you know, a few hours in, you know, you will get that medal around your neck, and you will forever then be a marathon runner, or marathoner, as they call them in America. I've got this, every time I did New York, you have a t-shirt that they give you that says marathoner on the back. And I love that. I'm a marathoner. You'll be a marathoner come April. So good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Don't you?
Yes. Okay. So, in fact, no. There's a good question that's coming up, but I've got a question first, which I think will tie into it and might just answer it. So what I'm always interested in anyone is, like, what makes a really, really good run for you? And I'm just going to leave that totally open.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know that I asked a lot of people this. I've asked Killian Jornet this. I've asked Scott Jurek this. I've asked Steve Cram this, Paula. But I think the best answer came from Johnny Brownlee. He said the ideal run starts with 10 minutes uphill. It's obviously somewhere beautiful. It's obviously off-road, but I think that's crucial. Johnny's absolutely got it. It starts with 10 minutes uphill, because that gets your legs going. And that shock, basically anything after that, you find that your legs are sort of, I don't know, slightly bionic, you know, slightly like, oh, you know, if it's just a mild incline or even an uphill, they don't really mind. And then anything downhill or flat obviously feels great. And so that 10 minutes is absolutely worth it, because the rest of the run, your legs feel great. So you're not going to be worried about this run feels like, you know, everyone has them, those runs that just feel like you just want them to end and your legs aren't having any of it. The 10 minutes uphill sort of takes that away, because it sort of, it supercharges you. And then it would be somewhere really beautiful, somewhere here, you know, somewhere in the British Isles, whether it's the Jurassic Coast, whether it's Snowdonia, whether it's the Lake District. I've never run in the Highlands, which I'd love to, whether it's the Brecon Beacons, whether it's the Peak District. I don't really mind. It's just somewhere beautiful and hilly, and yeah, and preferably kind of alone at dawn. I'd also probably like to be a bit lost, just to have that little, you know, that little danger, you know, because usually when I go out for a run, I don't take a phone, which is stupid, by the way. Don't do this, everyone. But I don't take a phone. I don't take, you know, supplies. I just go out for a run. And that little, I'm lost. Where am I? Is it going to get dark? Am I going to be in trouble? That little sort of element of danger, just running yourself into a slightly inadvisable position. I quite like that too.
Oh, that's a nice answer. Thank you. And that goes into Mike Bullock's question. So last year was his 50th. He planned 12 ultras in the year, but COVID. So he's now looking for 12 epic UK ultras for 2022.
Who's this? Sorry?
He's called Mike Bullock.
Okay.
So he says no city centre ones, beautiful, memorable places, and maybe your like top couple of UK Ultras.
There's 12 epic UK Ultras.
Well, he's going to do 12 epic UK Ultras.
Which ones would you think?
Well, you know, they trip off the tongue, don't they?
So this could be your bucket list as well, maybe? Or this could be
okay. Well,
you've
obviously you've got to do the Lakeland 100. Obviously you've got to do the Pennine. I mean, it depends how good a runner you are, Mike, to be honest. But, you know, you're doing 12 in a year. You've got to do, well, you know, the South Downs Way 100, the Centurion races are brilliant. And the South Down Way 100, ending on a track, you know, it's the Western States here. It's fantastic. And James, who runs Centurion, is a top human being. So that, obviously, Lakeland, Arctic Attrition, see you there. You know, yes to the Pennine Way. Do some kind of multi-day, you know, whether it's Dragon's Back or Cape Wrath, do one of those. I mean, Grand Union Canal race doesn't really excite me, but maybe that too, because it's there, isn't it? It's one of them. Maybe a few little, you know, like shorter ones, like, you know, sort of like mass participation ones, like, you know, I loved Race to the Stones, that sort of thing. Maybe also do one of a really sort of small, kind of local, low-key event. We mentioned the Mendips, didn't we? So like, I did the Mendip 50 a few years ago, and it's just, you know, there's only a few of you, and it's just quite kind of, you know, it's non-pretentious and lovely, and I think what ultra running should be about. And maybe do one on your own. Just don't have a race number on. Don't have to be at a start time at a certain time. Just sort of self-supported. Just make it up. I ran around the Isle of Wight once just because I had a day off, and I just thought, why not? Do that sort of thing. Decide to run from Newcastle to Sheffield or something like that, just because. I would say one of those two.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a list. If you do those in a year, good effort. Let us know. How does so going back to your training and potential for 18 miles a day as a commute, like what sort of mileage would you normally do in a like, if you're not sort of specifically trying to hit a certain target or something? What's like a normal week? And I'm going to tie this into a question we got asked for Jasmine the last talk we did. Do you find that you seem super motivated, but do you have times where you just do a couple of runs in the week rather than?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not actually that motivated currently. I am, since I entered the Arc. I am, and I've started swimming on the way to work, which really gets me going. You know, the shock of cold water. And it's really good now. You know, I swim in the lake in the middle of Hyde Park. You can do if you're a member of the Serpentine Swim Club, which I am. And it's open for swimmers at 5. It's dark. You're on your own. It's freezing. It's fantastic. So I'm not really running to and from work because I cycle or drive now, which takes away a lot of my commute, which sort of adds a lot of time to my runs later in the week. But I wouldn't swap the swimming. And I like the fact that I found other things that I find cool. I've been doing a bit of weight training because, you know, I've hit my mid-40s, and that's, you know, that's important and fun, actually. I'm not running, to answer your how many miles a week, I'm not running with a watch at the moment. I for the first time in many years, 10, I would say, I just don't have a watch on, don't have a Garmin. And I love it. So, you know, I do meticulously make a note of every run that I do. But now I have to go, I don't know, that was about an hour and a half, or, you know, that was about 45 minutes. I run when my son's doing his running club. That's an hour. I know that's an hour. And I have my little loop, and I have my hill sessions that I do. But I don't really run, definitely, you know, to time maybe, but not to distance. I just run as long as I can. You know, if I've got 3 hours before the school pickup, I'll do a 3-hour run if I can, you know. I'm probably not running enough for you know, given that I've got an Arc in a month and a half, but I'm doing what I can. I'm going to do a 50-mile run this week, and then maybe one next week as well, or the week after, sorry, when I'm off before Christmas. But I just run as much as I can. And the not running my commute these last few weeks and months because of the swimming, I don't really miss it. even though my legs probably missed the miles, because I'm really enjoying this new thing that I found, which is open water swimming, the cold water.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned your son runs, and there was a lovely bit in one of your books where your daughter's written a little bit about doing parkrun, and she talks about maybe not being so good at running at school, and then starting parkrun and kind of discovering running a bit. And are they still running and enjoying it?
The boy who, I don't know how old he was when he wrote that, Matthew, is 15 now, and just ran for Wandsworth in the London Youth Games, under 17s. So he's not going to break any world records, but he enjoys his running, and he knows how he gets loads out of it, and he does run. Emily does go running more for fitness than anything else, but she got into rowing at school. They started a rowing club, and so she's an amazing rower. A few years ago she won a silver medal at the nationals for rowing, so she went that way. And our youngest, who was maybe not even born when I wrote Don't Stop Me Now, definitely not able to write anything in it. I think she maybe was one. She started going to park run, so she does junior park run on a Sunday, and she's done 3 or 4 5k park runs. She did it with me on Saturday, and she's just getting. I saw Sophie Rayworth at the BBC newsreader on Saturday morning, and she said, "Oh, hello Vassos, hello Mary," as we were sort of shuffling to the start at Fulham Palace for the 5k. She goes, "Is your daddy making you run?" And Mary went, "Yeah, Sophie, he is." But then afterwards, she gets around. She goes, "Is this the first lap, Daddy, or is this the second lap?" And I went, "No, you can tell it's the first lap because we haven't actually done it before. It's clearly the first." And so, how long's left, and this sort of thing. But she doesn't. She's still got a smile on her face, and I don't want to be the dad who, it's a fine line between kind of making your children run, because they're not gonna get off the sofa without some kind of encouragement. And being the sort of, the overbearing dad. And I try and maybe I hope I've got it right, but she seems to like it, and she loves going to junior after doing the 5k, because that's only 2k, and she whips around in 10 minutes with her little legs. And so our 7-year-old is running, and it's just such precious time running together, going there together, and running round. Matthew now has other things to do. He's rowing now as well on a Saturday morning, so he and I haven't park run together for a while, but we always used to, because it's in the shadow of Craven Cottage, the football ground, where we go and watch Fulham every Saturday. So we chat and stuff, and I think he'd be quicker than me around 5k now, which is probably a good thing that I'm not running with him. I have to pretend to be injured, but no, it's lovely. I love the fact that my kids kind of get that sport exercise is good. Doing something hard outside is good for the soul.
Yeah, our daughter comes out with us sometimes, and the park run's not quite close enough. Like we have to drive, which always feels a little bit silly. But there's a really nice 5k loop around the fields, and we quite often take the dog, and she loves it. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
how old is she?
She's 10. But yeah, it's fun. It's cool, and yeah.
Does she moan at all?
No, she loves it.
Yeah, so she walks bits, but she doesn't moan. Sometimes she gets a stitch and stuff like that sometimes, but she's quite up for it. I'm impressed. But yeah, it feels so important not to pressurize it, doesn't it?
Yeah. On that note, you're patron of Stormbreak, is that right? So I think donations are being your part of the donations is going to Stormbreak. So
yes,
can you tell us a little bit about what they do?
Stormbreak is a wonderful young growing charity founded by Martin Yelling, who is like the official coach for the London Marathon, and he's married to Liz Yelling, Olympian, and running royalty really. But he is also a kind of very clever guy with a PhD, or maybe even 2 PhDs, and he has done a lot of research and founded this charity which helps kids mental health through movement. And honestly, when he asked me to be a trustee of the charity, I said yes, because I like Martin, and I like the idea. That sounds great, doesn't it? But I didn't really get it. And then a few years ago, all of the trustees had a day down in Bournemouth where it's sort of growing from. And, you know, like Parkrun sort of emanated out of Bushy Park. Stormbreak, which I think has an equal capacity to be a force for good, is emanating out of Dorset and Bournemouth, where Martin lives. And as I saw it in action and I got it, and suddenly I'm really kind of excited and energized by how much this could really help, just giving kids, primary school age kids, just options, just the ability to kind of to cope when they don't quite know how to. And it's 100% awesome, Stormbreak. So do please look it up. Do please donate. I'm very, very proud to be a trustee.
Brilliant, thank you. That sounds awesome, and yeah, we'll look them up as well. Got a reply from Mike Bullock. Thanks, Vassos. I've scribbled all those down. Really like your idea of doing one on my own. It would make a different challenge. So yeah,
it's really fun. You know, you don't have to be somewhere at a certain time. You don't have a race number. You haven't got to check in. You haven't got someone checking your kit list and have you forgotten the safety blanket, all that kind of, it's not nonsense. It's very important stuff, but it's just you and your legs. I love that.
Yeah. We also, quite interestingly, or fun in a way, but we've had suggestions for Mike in the comments. So,
cool. Which ones?
Someone said they marshal on some of the Hardmore events.
Yeah,
which
that's
I've heard
in there. Yeah, Mike Hardmore.
Yeah, and there's a series of different distances and times of these. So I think I was up for reading that out. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
You've marshalled a bit as well, haven't you? I remember in your book the sort of the amount that you get from a marshal sort of to help you, especially in ultras and things.
Yeah.
And then that you've sort of given that back. What do you do that much? Often, occasionally?
Yeah, I mean, I should probably do it more, to be honest. But it's a wonderful thing to do. I mean, volunteers are the absolute lifeblood of the sport of running, from top to bottom. You know, from the people who, you know, check the barcodes at Junior Park Run on a Sunday morning, to the people who stay up all night to help people running. Events like the Arctic Attrition that I'm doing in Cornwall, you know, that's a long old event, and it depends where you are on the course, how long you're going to have to be out there helping people in pretty desperate states sometimes. But no, it's fantastically rewarding. And if I was to give one piece of advice to anyone running these events, is just smile and say thank you to the volunteers, because it just makes both of your days a hell of a lot nicer. And if it wasn't for the volunteers who go out there in any weather, obviously, and whether it's a park run on a Saturday morning, Mary and I, our 7-year-old, and I did marshalling at Fulham Palace a few weeks ago. We found a police warrant card, police constable's warrant card, while we were doing it. I got it back to her, phoned the police, and they went, well, why have you picked that up? Well, in order to give it back to you. What do you mean, why have I picked that up? Are we allowed to arrest people with it? No, it's a really lovely thing, and you know, you just don't please take marshals and volunteers at these races for granted, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, because they don't have to be there, and without them, we don't have a sport.
Very true. Yeah, thank you. Quick question from Alice Bryan. Can you pinpoint what it is about running or exercising which you find so joyous?
Well, that thing that I said, you know, it's not just fitness. It's not just mental health. It's not just discovery and self-discovery. There's the simple childlike joy of running when you could be walking. It's everything for me. Running is everything for me. It's not the same thing on the same day. You know, sometimes it can clear my head. Sometimes it can give me a bit of, much needed va-va-voom. And, sometimes I can wake up in a bit of a funk and go for a run, and I'm fine for the rest of the day, thanks to the run. Sometimes if I'm stuck on a problem, writing those blimmin' books isn't easy, you know. And then what happens is, you know, the publishers ask you to write the book, and they pay you in advance, which is lovely. And then you spend that advance, so now you are pretty much duty bound to write the book to the deadline. And then you're, you know, and sometimes you just go, I haven't got, what am I going to say? You go for a run and suddenly it comes. You know, it's for me, you know, it takes every you know, anyone who's ever said, you know, what running is to them, it's all of those things to me, depending on what day it is, and sometimes more than one of those things every day. I'm very, very, very grateful to have found running, because it is it's been like a springboard for me. And that's why I write these books, actually, is because I'm, you know, because I came to it late. I'm like a sort of born again runner. I'm sort of evangelical about it. I want to spread the word, because I always think that a life with running in it is so much better and richer and more rewarding, even, you know, even those horrible runs, than a life without.
It's true. It's such a brilliant sport, isn't it? And it's like you just need a pair of trainers, basically, and
some Bridgedale socks,
and and half an hour, and it's worth going out. And like most other sports, you need more than half an hour. And
well, I sometimes think when my daughter was, you know, rowing really competitively, her rowing club was in Molesey, which is quite a long way west of where I live in Barnes in southwest London. And by the time she got there, met up with the rest of the people that she was rowing with, got the boat out, got into their, you know, rowing suits, got their things and got their wellies on, got the boat into the river and started rowing. You know, I was back home, showered, you know, changed, and, you know, on to the next thing. Yeah. It is so simple and it's so easy.
It's one of the things I really enjoyed about your books, actually, is your gratitude. Like, over and over again, you're grateful for things, and it's a really nice kind of, it's a really nice aspect of it, that every time you do a race, you express your gratitude to the marshals and to the organisers, and yeah, I thought that was a really nice thing that came across throughout your books.
Yeah, it's not me being nice, or because I'm not really. It's just that's what kind of running does for me. It just sort of brings out the, you know, if you can be just grateful for life, you know, if you can wake up, you know, people talk about gratitude, it's a byword now, isn't it? It's a buzzword, but it's true. You know, I make a point of cycling past or running past St Thomas's Hospital, which is just by Westminster Bridge, on my way to work every day, because when she was very little, we nearly lost our youngest, and they made her better there in the high dependency ward at the Children's Hospital at St Thomas's, Evelina. And I just look at the hospital and I'm just grateful. And I just think, you know, without them, we wouldn't have Mary. And, you know, I always think that when I go for a run, you know, I just think, oh, this is so good. I'm so happy. I'm so lucky to have found this. And so it's not me, you know, being nice. It's sort of running making me grateful rather than it coming from, you know, from me. And I think that's another thing. There you go. There's another thing. Be grateful to running for making you grateful.
Awesome. So we had a question about your books. Do you have a ghostwriter?
No.
I think you just answered that one.
Yeah. I sort of assumed you hadn't, but it's a fair question, I guess.
Although I was once in Glasgow Airport coming home, and it was in one of the books, I presume the first one, I think maybe the first one, because it was a while ago, was in the airport. And what you do is you write the book, you send it, you press send to the publisher, Charlotte, and then there's a few like niggly bits that they you know, and you get it, and then you don't think about it for a few months, and then you read the audio version of the book, and that's when you realize if it's any good or not. You know, because now it's too late, by the way, because they've booked the studios at Audible. Stephen Fry's in the next studio, or he was for Running Up That Hill. And then you read it out loud, and then that's you done with it. You know, people ask you about it, but you can't read. You know, you wrote it a year ago by now. You know, and then I was in W. Smith in Glasgow Airport, and I saw a copy of my book, and I thought, and I just sort of started flicking through it, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I remember this, you know, I remember writing this. And I was like, that's all right, that's quite, you know, that's quite funny, that bit, or whatever. And someone said, excuse me, are you Vassos Alexander? And then they clocked that I was reading my own book. So it must have looked to them like, oh, Like I did have a ghostwriter, but no, I don't.
It is exciting when they land, though, isn't it? When you get your first actual copy.
Yeah,
it's quite a cool thing.
It's exciting and terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of, oh no. Yeah. It's much easier to spot any mistakes when it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice question from Selena. I ran the Percy pudding yesterday with Emma, who's listening too, and we got PBs. Hey.
Well done. I remember PBs vaguely. Yeah.
And we got Christmas puddings instead of medals. What is the best, most ingenious, interesting prize you've got for a race?
Ooh. I mean, I do like the 100-mile belt buckle thing. I've never used it. I don't really know what a belt buckle is, to be honest. I mean, I know what it is because I've got some, but from races, the 100-mile races, but I don't quite know how it would work on a belt. But I quite like that because I quite like the sort of the history of that. In Greece, when you finish the Spartathlon, it is the most spectacular finish, and you don't cross finishing line. You kiss the statue. You kiss the statue of the warrior king Leonidas, and then they put a garland of wreaths on your head. People dressed like from 5,000 years ago, and then they give you a cup of water from the river, the Evrotas River, which is right there, like Phidippides would have been given 2,500 years ago. And then they give you this T-shirt, which is the most horrific color, and you think, I don't want that. I'll never wear that. And then you basically never take it off again for the next 6 months. But I know I quite like that. I quite like the history of getting a cup of water from the river, like, you know, Phidippides, the guy who invented the marathon, he did this run just before that, actually, from Athens to Sparta, 150 miles. You have to do it in 30 odd hours. And to be given a cup of water like he would have been done by the Spartans 2,500 years ago, that had resonance.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I finished the Bakewell pudding race and I got a Bakewell pudding, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, I also got a pint of beer in a marathon in Hampshire once because it was named after the local beer. That was quite cool.
That's very good. Would you say the Spartathlon's sort of the finish you're most proud of? Or
yeah,
something?
Yeah. I don't quite know how I finished that. The first 120 miles were fine, and then the wheels fell off, and I can't actually really remember. I remember a lot. I remember most of my runs, you know, but I don't remember much about that at all. I remember the finish. I remember the last 2 kilometers through the city of Sparta, because the whole city's out to celebrate you. And it's not like a marathon. It's not like people finishing the whole time. There's you, and then there's probably no one. There's 300 people start, 150 people finish. So it's every sort of half an hour through the day. So they really make a fuss of you, and local kids come and hold your hand and chat to you. And it is, you know, I'm not up there really. I have no business finishing the Spartathlon. So the fact that I did, I still can't quite believe it.
You're going to tell everyone, like, the cutoffs are harsh, aren't they? You have to, like, it's 153 miles, but you have to run fast to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I could trip them off the tongue a few years ago, but I think it's something like 3 hours 40 for the first marathon.
Yeah,
and that's not a flat marathon. That's like quite undulating out of Athens. And 8 hours for the first 50 miles, something like that, maybe 7.5, something like that. They're brutal early on. And so then you've run 50 miles in 7.5 hours, and then you've got 100 miles left to run. And, you know, 100 miles was as far as I'd ever run before that. So, you know, it was tough. And you climb a mountain at 100 miles. It's, you know, long old drag up this 4,000 foot mountain, and you think, oh, did I start halfway up? And then you think, no, because a few hours ago I was down by the sea, so I've basically gone from sea level to And it's always at night, that mountain, and it involves a little bit of scrambling. I mean, nothing dangerous, but it involves a little bit of scrambling, and it's windy and rainy and freezing at the top, and it had been 30-degree heat a few hours ago in the middle of the afternoon. It's a tough old race, and the fact that it's such a historic race, and the fact that the Greeks embrace you for running it so warmly makes it, definitely my favorite race, despite the fact that it's not particularly pretty.
Would you do it again?
Yeah. Actually, the time it's all sort of like engineered, and so you can auto qualify if you have particularly fast something. If you have a particularly fast 100-mile PB, you can just qualify and you don't have to go through the ballot. And the year I ran it, I'd actually reached the top of the mountain. If you reach the top of the mountain in a certain time, you again don't have to go through the ballot. And I was quite tempted to just go back next year, having basically auto qualified, because I was something like 16, 17 hours, I don't know, to the top of the mountain, which is 101 miles. And I mentioned to my wife, I said, I might do that again. I might see if I can, do it, but not crawl the last 30 miles. And she said, you know what, could you mind just staying put a bit? And I do have to balance that. And I want to balance that. My 7-year-old daughter is not going to be 7 for long, and these races will always be there. And if I'm too old and slow to do them, then so be it, because I've been very lucky what I've managed to do at the moment. So I'm not, I've got a long list of races that I'd love to do, but more important than any of those is being a dad and a husband. So I have sort of put races a little bit more on the back burner.
Yeah, and you don't really, with those kind of distances, you don't slow down a lot over the next 10 years anyway, do you really?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah. Probably, well, you don't know.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So Stuart asked me to ask you about the time when you bought a pair of shoes hours before a 2-day mountain marathon.
Morning, Stuart. Evening, Stuart. So this was Stuart. Presumably, it's Stuart Smith, who I ran the On with.
Yes.
This is Stuart. You know me. That's typical behaviour. I went out to where my trail running shoes were. They weren't there. My wife had thrown them away some months before as like those muddy, horrible things. So I had to go and buy some new shoes. And the only shop open was Decathlon. The others open at 9:30 and that opened at 9. So there were 2 pairs that fit me. One cost 55 quid, one cost 50 quid. So I got the cheaper ones because why wouldn't you? Then I had a car accident on the way. Someone just walloped into the back of me. But we had a wonderful time in the Black Mountains. Stuart, standard. Buying shoes on the way to the race is actually quite organised for me.
Okay, you didn't mention that in the book of the top tips and what to do, how to run a marathon. Buy shoes 2 hours before the race.
I did once I bought those Vaporflies at the Expo of Amsterdam. It was the week after Kipchoge had run sub 2 and Bridget Kosgei had broken Paula's world record in Chicago. And it was literally the Sunday after that. And I saw these pink gleaming shoes in the Expo, and I thought, oh, I want a PB and I'm willing to sell my soul for it. So I spent 250 quid on these ridiculous shoes. I had a nightmare race. I thought I might go sub 250, and it was awful. It was awful. And the thing is, everyone had the same idea. I mean, I know now you go to park run and everyone's wearing Vaporflies or carbon plates somewhere, but I happen to think that's a shame. I think they're basically like running in a trampoline, and that's not just sour grapes because they didn't work for me that day. It's just, it seems like it's becoming an arms race, and it should be a foot race.
I like that quote.
Not mine. Also, no. Not mine. That was from American marathon runner, great marathon runner. I can't remember her name. Married to a marathon runner. I can't remember her name. But anyway, it was her quote. Brooks sponsored athlete, I think.
Probably.
Alice Bryan says, thank you, Vassos. I only found joy in fitness as I worked to be fit before 40. Now love it. Listening to you and being part of the running community is hugely inspirational. Thank you. So that's
well,
nice.
thank you. Yeah, it is. You know, being part of the running community is awesome, isn't it? And we're all very lucky to be part of it. And the thing is, it's the most welcoming community, isn't it? You know, you sort of assume you're on your way to your first park run, you sort of assume that everyone's going to look like Mo Farah, and then you turn up and there's all shapes and sizes and colours and creeds on the start line, and everyone's happy to see you, and that's just awesome.
Yeah, it's the same with all races, isn't it? Actually,
Yeah.
Like you turn up and you think you're going to be, but there's always loads of other people there, and it's all good, isn't it? It's brilliant. Love it.
We were going to have a go at making your cake that you talk about in your first book. The one you you lost it halfway around the Ironman, I think.
Yeah.
But is there any kind of nutrition things you've learned since then, or things that you kind of rely on when you do these long races?
No, not really. I mean, as you're probably getting, you know, the picture, I'm quite slapdash about these things, but I unapologetically so. I quite like that. You know, I have never in my life laid out a flat standing. I'll frequently, where the hell is my race number? Where are my shorts? Oh God, you know, but I don't mind that. I quite like the sort of just doesn't matter, you know. Obviously, long races, if there's a kit list, you have to sort of check it off at some stage. But I don't really have nutritional go-tos. I'll take some bars, I'll take some chocolate for a very long race. Otherwise, you know, I have some gels if I really want to, which I haven't had for years. I don't think I've had a gel for years. Caffeine helps, I suppose, because I don't drink caffeine usually during the day, even working on a breakfast show. So I have it as my sort of break glass in case of emergency sort of thing. But I don't really, you know, obviously eat if you're running all day. But otherwise, just go with the flow. I think people get really het up about overthinking stuff. And it's just running at the end of the day. It's what we were born to do.
Excellent, thank you. Stuart Smith says he won't eat olives.
No, I won't eat olives.
Supposed to be Greek.
I won't eat olives. I don't like. Look, I can eat olives because, you know, I can't eat tomatoes actually, because I will throw up. But I can. It's the only thing I can't eat is raw tomatoes. But so tomatoes and olives. I know I'm not a good Greek, but they're just not that nice. I'm sorry. They're not. Olive oil, lovely. Olives, nah.
Excellent, thank you.
So another question we've got. I'm quite stunned about olives, actually, but that's fair enough. So, Vic, have you got any top tips for getting to sleep the night before a race or a sort of a tough event?
Yeah. The top tip is don't worry about it.
Which is the hardest.
Hardly anyone sleeps. I've covered 7 Olympic Games for the BBC, and I've talked to very, very many Olympic medal winners, and hardly any of them sleep the night before their event, and that's fine. Actually, it's the night before. It's nice to get a good night's sleep, but you don't tend to worry about it so much then. So that, you know, you've got your sleep bank. It takes about 36 hours for sleep, I've been told, to work its way through the system. So if you're not sleeping the night before a marathon or a big event, don't worry about it. I didn't sleep hardly at all, largely because I was sharing a room with a farting Australian the night before the Spartathlon, and then I didn't obviously sleep the night of it because I was running. So, you know, it had basically been 2 nights without sleep, and I was sort of fine. So yeah, the tip is don't worry about it too much that you're not sleeping, and you know, sort of conversely, the fact that you're not worrying about it means that you're more likely to sleep. But hardly anyone sleeps before a big event, and that's fine.
So, in a way, on that note, is your cousin still running? And do you still have your night before the big marathon type?
No, he lost his mojo when he broke 3 hours. Vassos, my cousin Vassos. So what we used to do is we used to go away to kind of European destinations for one night, Saturday night, fly in the afternoon, eat a massive, ridiculous, eclectic, weird, wonderful meal, the bigger the better, the night before the marathon, breaking every rule in a nutritional book, but we didn't care. Then run the marathon the next day, and then, you know, sometimes we had to finish in a certain time to make our flight home and then fly home. So we're only away from family for a night. But then he broke 3 hours in, I think, Eindhoven. No, I know Eindhoven. And then sort of lost his running mojo. I think he still runs a bit, but not obsessively. And I sort of, and he didn't really fancy taking the step to do longer races. I think he had his goal, achieved his goal, and then sort of moved on. He does spin classes now. And nothing wrong with spin classes. Well, I just prefer to be outside and running than inside on a bike, but going nowhere. But so yeah, no, we don't anymore, and I do slightly miss them. I saw him a few days ago, and we sort of talked about possibly starting running again or doing another marathon, but I don't think his heart's in it. It's a shame, but it was a nice little period of our life.
So best destination for an amazing meal with a marathon tacked on.
The best meal we ever had. I mean, before I was plant-based, so we ate all sorts. We did. What did we? I reckon Ljubljana in Slovenia. That was pretty awesome. Like loads of these like massive sausages the size of your leg, covered in oil. Weird goulashy type sort of things, and we just find a local restaurant and just basically order everything and then eat it, thinking that we'll burn it off the next day, and we didn't. They say don't eat anything that might disagree with you the night before a race, but it never really tripped us up. We just, maybe because we weren't fretting about it. Mind you, I also had some lovely food in Athens the night before Spartathlon and the night before the Athens Classic Marathon. I think, yeah, one country's food before you die, it would definitely be Greece, minus the olives.
Greece minus the olives.
Helen Williams says, any embarrassing moments you're happy to share? Mine, training for my first marathon, popped behind a hedge to relieve myself to find a combine harvester coming up the field behind me, age 59.
Thanks, Helen. I suspect that's not my friend Helen Williams, but hello, Helen, if it is. But my friend Helen isn't 59. Or if she is, she looks fantastic on it. Loads of embarrassing moments. I mean, honestly, there is not a... So embarrassing moments during races. I mean, I did a poo in public during the outlaw triathlon. You'd have run past my poo on a couple of times on that towpath. I mean, nice. Oh yeah, no, it's too numerous to count. I am in but not Bergen, Tromsø in Norway. I decided, it was the Midnight Sun Marathon, and I decided, my sort of weird adult brain decided that it was a good idea to dive into the Arctic Sea 16 miles in, because it was so wet. I wouldn't have got any wetter, and I needed to sort of kill a bit of time because I wanted to finish ideally at midnight exactly. And I'd done the first half a little bit too quickly, and so I had a bit, I was sort of trying to kill time, and I went into the thing. But then the next 10 miles, both the cold of the sea, and I wasn't used to cold water swimming then, and the food poisoning that it turns out I had from a pizza with my brother-in-law Dave earlier that evening, that sort of combined to lots of kind of nipping behind combine harvesters and throwing up and pooing and shivering, and I was a very messy sight. But I don't honestly feel that embarrassed. I just, you just carry on.
Yeah. There is a lot of that in your books, which is funny. Gemma says, ever tried CBD oil? There's been a recent article in Runner's World about potential benefits. And before you answer, she also says, thank you, Vassos. This has been a massively inspirational evening. I've been a bit unmotivated recently and love your slapdash approach. Your books will be on my Christmas list.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I have actually tried CBD oil, and it didn't work for me. It made, it's meant to make you not anxious. It gave me anxiety, sort of. I was in Cornwall with my wife, and we were sitting on, and she goes, "What's up with you?" And I went, I don't know what's up with me. I know I'm not being myself, and I know I'm being kind of short-tempered and weird, and I don't honestly know what's up with me. She goes, "Do you think it might be that CBD oil that you've started taking?" And I thought, God, you know when you sort of know, like when you've got food poisoning and you know what it was because you can feel it. I suddenly realized, oh yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. And I stopped taking it. I was fine again. So yeah, I'm not saying that it makes everyone feel like that, but it definitely made me feel like that.
Brilliant. So we've got about 15 minutes left, just in case anyone's got any pressing questions. Running's great, isn't it? You can just talk. But what I was going to ask, do you think there is a next book? Like, have you got a plan? Have you pitched anything? Or
no, I'm done. I am done. You'll be pleased to know there are no more words about running coming from my keypad or notes section in my phone, which is where I write them. I was done with the first. I was definitely done with the second. And then Chris Evans, who I work with, my friend and colleague, suggested I write. He came up with the title "How to Run a Marathon," and I, having heard it, it would annoy me if I hadn't written it, because I love the idea of everyone running a marathon because it's such an iconic distance and it's such an amazing achievement. So I wanted to help people on that journey if I could, and the way I do that is show don't tell, just stories and other people. And so I wrote that one, and I enjoyed writing that one. But I think I'm done. I really think I'm done.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Who is your running hero?
That's from Vic.
From Vic.
Emil Zatopek, who I didn't know was my running hero until I was asked to go on Mastermind, and I had to choose a subject. And I'd heard, ever since I started running, I'd heard in slightly awed tones this runner called Emil Zatopek. And so I thought, I'll make him my specialized subject and I'll find out about him. And I did, and he's awesome. There's a couple of great books recently. One's by Richard Asquith and one's by can't remember, and they're both highly recommended, and they're both really different. One of them sort of brings in the British runners of the day who thought training was sort of a little bit obscene and sort of beneath them, and he just pioneered, just like piling with the training, 80 400-meter repeats around a track and a 5-mile run there and back through the snow, sometimes carrying his wife, who also won an Olympic gold medal. Anyway, so he is, and as a human being and as a runner, he's in a class of his own. So definitely Emil Zatopek. I would love to have met him. I would love that, but he's dead, so I can't.
You go for a run with him. That'd be fun. He was meant to run. Did he have quite a strange running gait? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looked like Frankenstein when he ran. I mean, imagine the most pained run face, tongue lolling, head onto its side. But actually, if you look from the waist down, he was beautiful. His 5,000-meter victory in the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki, that final lap is one of the great laps in Olympic history. Twice he was overtaken. He'd already won the 10,000 gold medal. He would go on to win the marathon gold medal in his first ever marathon. But in this 5,000 meters, the last lap of the 12.5, he was overtaken twice and somehow found the speed and the desire and the will from deep within him to just surge past again and finish first. It's one, have a look at it on YouTube, the 1952 5,000 meter Olympic final. It's amazing. And get the Czech commentary as well, because they go completely bananas.
I think we can probably get that on there. There'll be an email that goes out with sort of links to things like Stormbreak, but we can probably find that YouTube and put that on there, which would be,
put it on. It's great.
It'll be a good evening. And this talk will be on YouTube as well once it's over.
Yeah, one quick question. You mentioned Richard Asquith there, and I think he inspired a few people on the Bob Graham. Is that something you said you've been up and had a bit
included?
of a
Absolutely, me included. A Bob Graham is definitely on my bucket list. I'm going to do it, if I'm honest. I'm going to just do it. A few people have offered to basically take me round, but I don't want to do it as a test of fitness. Having read Feet in the Clouds ages ago, I am very much of the opinion that unless you're Killian Jornet, go and do time in the lakes, run it, know how to nav it, and go through the purgatory of 6-hour journeys up on a Friday night, find a nice B&B to stay in, run on the Saturday and the Sunday, and then come back for work on the Monday morning. I want to do all that. I want to feel like I've earned it. And so I will do it at some stage, but I don't want to make a hoo-ha about it. I just want to quietly do it for myself. I might even do a self-nav one.
Yeah.
Awesome. We've got Finley Wild and John Kelly coming up, so they might have some top tips.
Yeah, Finley Wild's 12 minutes behind Killian Jornet. Is that right? Less than that, maybe?
You only just missed it.
It's close, which is pretty nuts. But yes, he's our next talk next month.
Yeah.
And also, that wasn't me having a go at Killian Jornet. I did genuinely mean Killian Jornet, because all of the fell running royalty welcomed him into the. He absolutely did it with due humility, and it was lovely to see.
Yeah, he's amazing, and everyone who meets him says he's a lovely chap.
I spoke to him the next day actually, and it was I was at Wimbledon tennis, and I spoke to him in the green room, and I was desperately trying to continue the conversation, but the tennis. So you wait as a commentator in the green room until your match is called onto court, and the other match was sort of finishing, and I was really hoping it went to a deciding set so I could talk to Killian a little bit more. But it was a great achievement, isn't it? That time is awesome. Anything near that time,
anything like, I mean, under 24 hours is a great achievement.
Exactly.
It's not meant to be easy.
Yeah, he really knows his stuff as well, though, doesn't he? He's well up on the science as well. So yeah, he
has properly lived it.
Another question from Helena. Would you say that cold water swimming helps with running? I've just started swimming in the North Sea as it's on my doorstep.
Oh, lucky you! Yeah, we're lucky enough to have a little place by the North Sea in Kent, and it's lovely in there. Yeah, I think it does. I mean, certainly after getting out, the next mile is very quick. If you do it mid-run, but I think it helps with everything. Actually, I think it's like running. I think it just it generally. I don't know what it is. I do know what it is about running, because we were born to run. So it feels like you're doing right by your DNA when you're running somewhere outside that's possibly not a city. But with swimming, because we're not aquatic, aren't we? And with mountains, I don't know why they speak to your soul, but I think they really do. They definitely speak to mine. And I don't know why, swimming should be the case unless we were aquatic somewhere, millions of years ago. I don't know. But something about being in open water, and definitely about being in mountains, I don't get quite why it should be so kind of so awesome. But they are, both of them are.
Yeah, Jasmine was pretty keen on swimming as well. So I guess it helps with recovery as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, 3 degrees in the Serpentine this morning. That is proper cold. That is like staying half an hour and you're dead kind of cold.
Yeah, it's probably good mental training, I guess.
Yeah, it is actually. I'm there. Like last year I was going in, but I'd always meet, because it was lockdown, so the Serpentine was closed. So we'd meet by the Thames, but I'd meet people to swim. And then when they're there, there's no option of not going in, because you've gone, that's your daily exercise. You've gone to the Thames and they're getting in and you get in. So but when I'm there on my own in the morning at 5 o'clock and it's dark and there's no one else around, you just suddenly think, what am I doing this? It does take a little bit of kind of mental oomph to get myself. I'm never not going to go in having taking the trouble to, you know, cycle there or drive there, I guess. But it does take a bit of, you know, mental fortitude to get in, because it's it's quite a
Cool. So I think there's one more question. But before I ask that, is there anything that you'd like to say or tell anyone or anything before we finish? We talk anything at all? Otherwise, I've got a question.
Well, thank you very much for coming along. Do please donate to Stormbreak if you can, and but more important than any of that is just do go, you know, go for a run and see what you're, you know, capable of. Test your limits, because you'd never regret doing that.
Yeah, you never regret a run, like ever, do you? Sometimes you regret not going out, but never, ever, ever regret going out. So last question then, probably, from Natalie. Do you prefer running on your own or with a friend?
And why?
Honestly, probably on my own. If I had to go for one more run, I'd be on my own. I'm never bored running on my own. And people often ask me that, you know, if you're running for 30 hours straight, how can you not get bored? Just don't. You just don't, because you're very much in the moment. It's mindfulness, you know. And so probably not that I dislike running with friends, but that's just an occasional cherry on the cake. But running on your own, that's the actual cake. That's what it's all about. So it's not even a difficult question, to be honest. I would be on my own, but I know that makes me sound very kind of like I don't like people, but I do. I
don't think so. I think that's cool. So it's not last question anymore. But
we are gonna, just because I have to get up at 4, we're gonna have to make this the last question.
We are done. We are basically done. But yes, so from that, do you think you run because you love running and race because it's fun, rather than you run because you really like races?
Completely that way around. I run because I really like running, and races are nice waypoints along the way, a nice way of meeting people, especially really long races. You get to chat and you know, really feel like part of the community. But I run because I love running. If races were taken away, like they were taken away in 2020, I didn't stop running.
I think that's
perfect place to stop.